South Africa 30, Australia 22. Not the most convincing performance from the Boks. They had to really grind it out. Horrible weather conditions. And I think that played a big role in the end. It was just a game we couldn't really get going. You kind of just felt our momentum. Every time we started playing a bit well, a couple of mistakes here. Handling errors were really prevalent, as you kind of imagine in those sort of conditions. But I think probably more than just the handling errors, it was the fact that we couldn't really get like scrum dominance as well. Wet underfoot, for example, weren't pushing the Australian scrum backwards. And the line was a bit better, but it was a proper dogfight, really. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see how this Wallaby side does, because the Boks are coming under a lot of criticism for maybe underwhelming performances against them. Look, at least we got the win this weekend, and that's the main thing. And we led for 99% of the game. But not big performances, not dominant performances. Even this, the last 10 minutes, still very much on the edge. And what will be interesting to see, is this a case of the Boks being poor, for example? Is this us not being able to compete? Or are the Wallabies just improved that much? And that we'll only know really when they play the others in the Rugby Championship, when they play your Argentinas and you play the All Blacks and the likes of that. But I think that there's a bit of combination. I don't think the Boks are playing, firing on all cylinders at the moment. I think we have been quite poor in the last few games. But I do think it's a very good Australian side that has grown a lot. And I think we're seeing a much better opposition in them. So I think that the All Blacks test is going to be quite good, to be honest. But let's break this game down, shall we? And kind of look at exactly how it all played out. It was a pretty solid start from the Boks because early penalty, Andre Pollard off the boots, 2 solid penalties, and off we go 6-0 and looking quite solid, looking in control, I think was the main thing. And then we had a scrum inside our 22, concede a free kick. Nick White looks up, sees nobody in behind the defensive line. Quick tap, puts it over, little chip in behind, or grab it in behind, and Corey Toole runs onto it and scores. And we were like deers in headlights, like what just happened? And those soft moments, I think, is what's very frustrating, because there's been far too many of those recently. There's been far too many really poor tries that we're kind of conceding. And, look at the second try as well. I mean, the try by Jorgensen, also individual error. So 7-6, all of a sudden, Wallabies into the lead. It was a good kick from O'Connor, off by the corner there. But we responded, and we scored through Kane and Moody, Pollard out of the extras, and Quagga Smith with a very good try. I mean, the Kane and Moody try, off the back of a more, couple of phases, Pollard with the cross kick, almost a bit of a banana type kick, really, on the bounce to Kane and Moody, runs and dabs it over. Cool, easy work. 11-7, 13-7. Then Quagga Smith goes over. Very good individual effort, to be honest. I mean, he bounced off 2 players, fought his way through and down under the poles. And at 20 points to 7, you're thinking, right, if we get to half time at 20 points to 7, we've got the momentum, we've got the scoreline. That O'Connor penalty was annoying from a momentum point of view. And I think it was a harsh penalty, to be honest. The ball pops out of the back of the ruck. Quagga Smith then dives and grabs it and pops it up. And the referee says, basically playing the ball on the ground. So essentially what he wants Quagga to do is basically just go down and present the ball. Frustrating to concede their penalties before half time. 20 points to 10. Wallabies would have felt they're still in this game. And then an absolute horror show from Kane and Moody in that try over there. Kicking behind. And lots of runners. Obviously Australia, Jorgensen and Corey Toole absolutely rapid. So they're kicking behind very deliberately. Kane and Moody was coming across to cover. And just completely overruns it, basically, leaves the ball behind. He runs into Ches and Colby, taking out Colby, and the ball basically bounces in front of Jorgensen, who says, thank you very much, and he goes over. Even in the first half, we almost conceded a try where Andre Pollard, as he's getting the ball gets knocked out of his hand. Thankfully, there's a knock-on by Kellaway in the process, because the Wallabies then went over. But all of a sudden, they're right back in the game. We take a 3 points about 10 minutes odd later. Andre Pollard, 3 points. He kicked well, got the man of the match. Not sure he was the best player, but he kicked well off the tee. And again, in tests like this, which is why he was selected, you need that solidity. Then we had a try by Penga Mosa off the back of more from Australia. 23 points, 22. James O'Connor hooking pulling his conversion, thankfully, because otherwise it would have taken the lead. And then Eben Etzebeth with a try in the 73rd minute. Good try. Very good try. Lots of powerful carries in the build-up, a lot more dominance up front, and then just quick hands, dabs it down, and Pollard did the rest. Game wasn't done. I think the frustrating part then was as well, after weathering a bit of a storm, going down to 14 men, we won a late penalty for the neck roll. on Lua Diaga, kicked to the corner, and we created some space, and then Eben Etzebeth tried to throw a long pass out wide to JC Creel. Had it gone into hand, I think JC Creel would have gone over for the bonus point. Not the best pass, and it went on to touch, and it finishes at 30 points to 22. I mean, look at the stats, for example. Possession in the last 10 minutes, 50-50 really. We did lead for most of the games. I think if you look at something like, 4.2 average point score for the 22 media entry, it's complete opposite of last week. Last week, we were in the 22 a lot. We had a lot more ball in hand. We kicked a lot more today than we did last week. But we were a bit more accurate when we were in the 22. But I think the main thing is we were kicking lots of points outside of the 22, which is why that's so high. Whereas Australia, for example, 2.3 points scored with their 8 entries. So our defensively was much, much better this week. But not line breaks, for example. And but again, lots more kicking. You can see over there, we out-kicked Australia. And you have to in those conditions. You have to play the conditions. So if we look at it there, 522 meter entries to 8, 3 line breaks only. 94 carries to their 100, 55 kicks though. I mean, that's an extraordinary high number. I think last week it was about 26, so a lot more kicks. And we do get the Nelson Mandela Freedom Cup plate or whatever it is. So good to see us getting that and being handed over right now. If we look at the defense profiles, for example, weirdly enough, we didn't have a lot of dominant tackles. Weirdly enough, no dominant tackles throughout the match, which is usually a stat that we've got lots, whereas Australia had 2. But 129 made, 30 missed. Big issues with the defense at the moment. Jerry Flannery is under a lot of pressure in that regard. The ironic thing is you look at the tries scored, and none of them actually individual like defensive errors, except for maybe the first one, maybe positioning wise. Second one was a mistake from Kane and Moody, and the third one was Ronnie Moore, which you need to be able to stop. So I mean, it's difficult because, again, we've conceded 3 tries, so defensively, that's an issue. But you look at the type of tries you're conceding, and it's not like there's massive holes in the defense, but we are leaking far too many tackles, and we're missing far too many tackles, and we just don't look as structured as we want to in defense. And I think that better teams will punish us for that. A slightly slower ruck speed last week. We saw immense ruck speed. This week, still quite quick, but slower than what we saw last week. Obviously, had to just calm things down a little bit more. But yeah, if you look at some of the stats really and kind of sort of see where the game was won and lost, a proper slugfest is the best way of describing it. And I mean, 3 penalty goals to 1, 3 tries apiece, 3 conversions to 2. But territory-wise, 50-50 odd. Possession, 50-50 literally. Set plays, 100% scrum win for each team. 100% for the lineouts, much better lineouts for us. Australia only losing 1, which was skew. I think 1 over the top. So I think 2 lineouts lost there. Receive starts were 5. So our set pieces were right, but the problem is because of the conditions, we didn't really maul. We didn't really get to get scrum dominance and push them backwards, get that penalty advantage, and kind of attack off the back, which is what we really like to have. So that was a problem, and we have to try and find ways of making that work in conditions like this, because these are going to be the conditions at the end of year tour. These are likely to be the kind of conditions we're going to see at Eden Park and Wellington in a few weeks' time. Fewer post-contact meetings, not as many line breaks as well. Breakdown was better this week. 4 turnovers, 1. Fraser McGrath didn't have the week he had last week. Probably still too many turnovers lost from a South African perspective. Try and get that closer to sort of the 10 margin really is what I kind of ideally want. But the breakdown was better from a South African perspective than it was last week. 9 penalties conceded. Discipline wasn't great. Need to try and up that as well. And then again, we look at our defense. 81% is unacceptable. We've got to get that towards the 90% sort of margin. But a lot more kicks to pass ratio than Australia. I think that was the right call. In terms of some individual efforts, I thought that Rob Valentini played quite well. Cheslin Colby was busy from a South African perspective. If we look at tackles completed, Fraser McGrath 17, Damien Dalendi 14, Kwaka Smith was everywhere, 14 tackles.